Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us to this live session on civil engineering. And my name is Dr. David Ikumi. I will be the moderator. Before we continue, I'd just like to ask you to submit all your questions via the chat button that's on the screen. Also, in these presentations, we shall have 15 minutes at which there shall be some presentations about civil engineering. Following the 15 minutes, we shall have 15 minutes at which we shall use to respond to the questions. In those 15 minutes, we shall have a discussion session between me and the presenter. Now, the presenter that shall be representing us is Professor Hans Beushausen, who has been a professor and a lecturer at our civil engineering department for very many years. He knows all about the various fields in civil engineering and shall be able to explain everything you need to know quite well. I shall now hand over to Professor Beushausen, who shall give you all the information you need.
Okay, thank you, David, for the kind introduction, and good evening, everyone. Yes, I've been with UCT for more than 20 years by now, so I do know what we do in civil engineering. Let me share my screen. So we have a presentation of about 15 minutes and followed by questions. And please post your questions in the question and answer chat room, and then we will try and address those after the talk. So it will be my pleasure to talk to you and about the disciplines of civil engineering and what we do here in our program at the University of Cape Town. Okay, so let's begin by looking at a modern city. Like in this example, you can see New York. All what you can see here has been designed by civil engineers. And the question is, what makes a city a city? What defines an urban space? So what you can see in this picture, not always clearly because some parts are a bit small, you can see structures, buildings, roads, bridges, tunnels, buildings, traffic lights, shoreline protection, water supply, wastewater treatment, transport systems, subways, and all that. And this whole urban space has been designed and constructed by civil engineers. And of course, the same is true for Cape Town, for example. And here you can see also the shoreline, the harbors, the sports stadium, and the city itself. And it was civil engineers who in the past 300 years or so have converted this piece of land into what is now known as Cape Town. We also deal with construction of major civil infrastructures such as roads and railway systems, dams and bridges, and we are involved in the actual construction process. So looking again at the built environment, structures, houses, towns, roads, bridges, tunnels, water supply, sanitation, shoreline protection, harbors, canals, industrial infrastructure. That is what makes our built environment. That is what enables us to live the life that we live as humanity. And civil engineers plan, design, construct, and maintain this built environment. And I forgot to congratulate all of you, because as far as I understand, you have been accepted to study civil engineering at the University of Cape Town, the best university on the continent. And it's my duty and my pleasure to try and convince you that you have in fact made the right choice. So congratulations, you made the first step into a good future. Okay, moving on. Civil engineering disciplines. Typically, when we talk about civil engineering as a whole, we talk about a range of sub-disciplines, which include structural engineering, construction materials, hydraulic engineering, water management, urban engineering, transport engineering, and geotechnical engineering. And the old-fashioned and still the modern engineer will be educated in all these different disciplines to be able to solve problems on all these different aspects. Looking at the different disciplines, first of all, structural engineering. The discipline of structural engineering concerns the design and analysis of structures and their components. And now that could be bridges, buildings, tunnels, any structure that is built. And typically that starts by analyzing components and analyzing how they fit into the overall system, making sure they're strong enough and all that, and also to consider how the structures are actually built and make sure that they last for the required service life duration. Construction materials form the fundamental basis of our infrastructure. And you guys, when you have studied civil engineering, you will understand the properties of all the different materials such as concrete, steel and timber and others. And you will be able to model, predict and improve the performance of those materials for any loading condition and environmental exposure. What you see here in this picture, you can see a concrete road being constructed. We can see on the next slide a beautiful timber bridge, which is quite a nice engineering design. Long spanning steel bridges, concrete bridges, and typically for the structural engineer, bridges are the biggest feat that they can achieve. So bridge construction and bridge design is like what typically students want to do one day when they study structural engineering. Then we have hydraulic engineering, and the hydraulic engineer, also a civil engineer, models and predicts the flow of water in rivers, oceans, canals and pipelines, and supports modern society by providing efficient water supply schemes in urban areas and by protecting the shoreline and riverbanks against the forces of nature. So you will learn to predict the flow of water. How fast does it flow? How much of it flows? Where does it flow to? How can we contain water? What does it do to the structures? How can we use it? And so on. That is all part of hydraulic engineering. So looking at the city of Cape Town, for example, the hydraulic engineer will make sure that we get water from the mountains into the city for the water supply. The hydraulic engineer will also make sure that we can model the ocean and provide shoreline protection so that we are not harmed by the water surrounding us. And the civil engineer will also make sure that that water, the wastewater that we have used, will be transported to a wastewater plant. So the whole question of water management is part of hydraulic civil engineering. Water management is concerned with ensuring that everyone gets a fair share of safe water. It also entails the treatment of water for safe reuse or disposal in order to protect the environment. So wastewater management has a lot to do also with chemical engineering. So within your studies, you will have 2 courses in our department on wastewater management, which would also then require you to study a bit of chemistry, which will be quite interesting. Then urban engineering. The urban engineer aims to protect the environment. You will always hear lots about environment and sustainability when we talk about civil engineering, because it's us who have to design the whole infrastructure. That's where most of the resources are being used that we use on the planet. So the urban engineer aims to protect the environment whilst delivering municipal services to cities and towns. These services include safe drinking water, transportation, and the removal of sewage, stormwater, and solid waste. The discipline combines the knowledge of civil engineering with an understanding of people and the space they live in. So we are not just number crunchers, we also tend to understand humans in order to provide them with the needs of modern society. Transport engineering. A transport engineer is concerned with providing suitable transport solutions for all people without jeopardizing the environment. And that can include road transport, rail transport, and all of that. Now, where do civil engineers work? You can work in design offices, so that's like when you plan structures or roads or transport systems, and you analyze systems and you put on paper what then will be built. You can also work on site. So on site, typical site work for civil engineers might include investigations on site, planning, measuring the site, and so on. It can also include the construction supervision. Each construction project is supervised by a civil engineer to make sure that what has been planned is actually implemented according to the proper guidelines on site. You can work in industry, so in consultancies, for contractors, for developers. You can also work for the government if you like the more easy lifestyle. You can work in research and development. And in fact, civil engineers are in quite demand in all sorts of industries, not just in those related to civil engineering, because once you have this engineering mindset, and especially civil engineers who understand all sorts of facets of modern society, those people are, or you would be in quite high demand for all sorts of companies that need good minds. And that could be for businesses and also in research and development that may or may not be related to actual civil engineering. You can also work in academia, and personally, you've heard that I've been at UCT for 21 years. I believe that is one of the best and most fulfilling jobs that you can actually have. So if you are interested, we're also happy to educate you to be an academic. In terms of the studies at UCT, our program is a 4-year BSc program, which is also available as a 5-year extended program, which is typically taken by students who struggle or who might struggle in the first 2 years with all the physics and mathematics. So we have a way of assisting those students. And that will be followed by typically 1 year or 2 years master studies if you are interested in that. In your undergrad studies, you will cover all disciplines of civil engineering that I have given you. And we have got certain strength at UCT, a certain focus. And those focus areas are structural engineering, hydraulic engineering, water engineering, construction materials, transport, and geotechnical engineering. We do have the best research facilities in Southern Africa, which includes the laboratories, the library, and the campus facilities as such. We also have in our department the highest number of internationally acclaimed academics compared to other universities in South Africa. And we are the highest ranked civil engineering department in Africa. And I think at the moment we rank at about 180 in the world, which is quite a good achievement. So if you want to study civil engineering in South Africa and you have been accepted at UCT, there is only one place where you actually want to study civil engineering. Looking at future challenges for civil society. Now, in the past, let's say 100 years, civil engineers have gone through a certain curriculum. We have learned to design structures and transport systems, and nothing much really has changed apart from a new funky construction methods, new materials and all that. But looking at the engineer in the future, your generation of civil engineers or your generations of people will have totally different challenges. And especially it will be civil engineers who have to consider all those challenges in their profession to make sure that humanity can continue to thrive on the planet as we have in the past thousands of years. So looking at the challenges, we have climate change upon us. And now not everyone might be believing in climate change, but I think we have seen ample evidence of what's happening. Global warming, climate change, all of that is really happening. We have diminishing resources, and then we talk about water. But for example, we also talk about sand. The world is running out of sand, and that might sound strange to you because we still have like deserts full of sand and beaches full of sand. The problem being that that sand is usually not really usable for making concrete, for example. We make so much concrete as humans, and concrete contains sand, but we have run out of sand in the whole world. For example, in the Western Cape region, we have no natural sand resources or hardly any natural sand resources left. So now we started to crush down big rocks into smaller particles to use that as sand. So the whole industry has got to deal with these diminishing resources and find new ways to design, construct, and maintain structures with what we have on the planet. We have population increase. Who's going to house all these people and give them water and food and supply and transport and all of that? Urban planning, that's a huge issue that will have to be addressed by civil engineers. So the questions are, who will protect our cities from all those natural disasters that we get from climate change and global warming. That will be civil engineers. Who will ensure that water supply continues to be there for humanity? Civil engineers will do that. Who will provide living space and infrastructure for those billions of people that are going to hit our planet in the next couple of decades? It'll be civil engineers. So who builds a future for our planet? Civil engineers do that. You guys can do that if you choose to study civil engineering with us here at UCT. So the question is, what do you guys want to become? You have applied for civil engineering. You've been accepted at the best university in Africa for civil engineering. I expect to see you in class next year. So welcome to civil engineering at UCT, and thank you for your attention. And with that, I'm handing back to my colleague, Dr. Ikumi. David, have you got any questions for me from the chat room?
Thank you so much, Hans, for that insightful presentation. We've got a few questions here, which I think should not be too hard for us to give good answers to. Some of them are dealing with admissions and some are dealing with the work experience, average salary. I shall just read them all one by one and we shall respond to these questions that you have all asked as a discussion between myself and Prof Beushausen. The first one involves the admissions, which I may already give a response to beforehand. If Hans has a further answer, he can also include it. And this question is, have you guys already started accepting applications? So according to what of my knowledge, there is a way in which online you can actually monitor your application status. So whether you have been accepted or not, that's something that can be verified and checked online if you just go to, unfortunately, I'm not sure how I can copy paste the link, but there is a link if you go to the UCT webpage where you can actually check your online status. You put in the student number that has been given to you when you're applying, and then it shall show you your status of application. The next question we have, or unless Hans would like to also add on to that. All right. The next question we have is, can you work through the university to gain experience in civil engineering? I shall leave that to Hans.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not quite sure what that means. Can you work through the university to gain experience? Well, I think first of all, you will have to study civil engineering, which will take about 4 years, and you will gain a lot of experience because we will also make you do vacation work. So vacation at UCT doesn't mean you can just go home and lie at the beach. During the vacation, we will also make you work in companies, construction companies and consultancies. So there is quite a bit of practical experience already incorporated in the degree program, which I hope answers the question.
Yeah, thank you very much. And the next question we have here is, what is the average salary, and is it possible to become an entrepreneur and start a business once qualified with experience? Okay, so first of all, the question is always, why do you guys always ask about money first? First, you got to become good human beings and good civil engineers, and then we talk money. And then, but the answer to the question is, you can earn as much as, no, not as much as you want, but certainly civil engineers have got a good salary, and how much money you will earn will depend a lot on how good you are in your job, which is the same for any other job. So typical starting salaries at the moment could be anything between 25 and 35,000 a month. And within a couple of years, that figure can increase drastically depending on the type of job you're doing and how well you do it. Can you become an entrepreneur?
I think civil engineers are entrepreneurs by nature. Civil engineers are constantly developing new methods of design, construction, a new use of materials and all that. So, and that's also what I mentioned in the presentation. With this engineering mindset, especially the civil engineering mindset, you can basically become anything. And if you actually look at the entrepreneurs that we know in this world and see what their background is, if they have studied and have got a degree from a university, you will very often find that indeed they are engineers, maybe civil engineers. So in short, the answer is lots of money and lots of entrepreneurship. But it's up to you to do that.
I can add on to that. Someone once said civil engineers were more leaning towards missionary type of people than mercenary type of people. So it's something actually that you can do that that's a profession that's going to be more fulfilling rather than monetary fulfilling, but it's going to be fulfilling in terms of what you achieve in contributing to society. Of course, you could make a lot of money as a civil engineer in various ways, and there's various different ways to actually gain a really good salary by this profession. So the next question I have here is there room for creativity in civil engineering?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I hope that my presentation has answered that. I think if there is any engineering, I think that all engineering disciplines have got a lot of creativity in them. But just walk around where you live and look at the houses, the roads, the bridges, the shoreline protection, and all of that has been designed by civil engineers. All of that has been made to function properly by civil engineers. And of course, it's impossible to do that without creativity. I think if I look at the urban space that we live in, which has all been designed by civil engineers, we are probably amongst the most creative people that there are. We are one of the most creative professions. We have created all of this, civil engineers. So yes, lots of room for creativity. And also what I said earlier, we have got all these new challenges. So we have to stop thinking the way we used to think as civil engineers also. So especially for all those challenges, a lot of creativity will be required to make it work.
Thank you very much. There is a question here which I see has been asked quite a lot. Does UCT offer paying internships? I'm guessing that's with regards to civil engineering, maybe working in the labs or something like that.
Well, we don't have paying internships. I think that is not offered. I'm not sure if that is offered anywhere else at the university. I've never heard of that concept. What we do have is that sometimes senior students, so who might be in their final year and might have some time because they have a limited curriculum, we sometimes employ them as tutors. So that would be the one way where we have students to assist tutoring courses like first or second year courses for which they would be paid. But typically, if you do a full 4-year degree program and you aim at finishing your studies in 4 years, you will not have much time to do internships except for when you want to do them during the vacation. And during the vacation, you also have to do work with consultancies. So the short answer is, I don't think you have time for that, but yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna couple the next two questions together because they seem sort of closely related with regards to sustainable infrastructure. How active a role does civil engineering play in managing resources? And does civil engineering include development of sustainable green buildings or materials?
Yeah, okay, thank you. So the second question, all the construction materials that we use, that is part of the discipline of civil engineering. So many disciplines deal with construction. Also there's architecture, for example. But when it comes to the materials, the concrete, the timber, the steel, the bitumen, the glass, the aluminium, how we use that in construction and how we use available resources in construction to build, that is all left up to the civil engineer. So it is our discipline. And for example, I'm one of those people. I work in construction materials, and I spend all of my research time on developing sustainable concrete materials, which is a major issue that we have in the whole world at the moment. So it is civil engineers who deal with sustainable development and sustainable use of resources for the built environment. That is exactly what we do. It is actually our responsibility as civil engineers to design and construct and maintain structures that meet the goals for sustainability.
All right. Thank you very much. There is a question here. Would you say civil engineering is better than chemical engineering? Yes. Maybe I can answer that for Prof Beushausen.
David, that is such an easy question to answer. So easy. It's definitely yes. I mean, really.
What is the advantage of getting a master's?
Okay, we will talk to you about that in detail throughout your studies, but the advantage of getting a master's is that we will educate you in all those different disciplines in civil engineering. So you will not be specialized in structural engineering or hydraulics or wastewater treatment or geotechnical engineering, which is good because you need to understand all those different parts of engineering. But in your master's, you will be given the opportunity to specialize in one of those disciplines. So if after your studies, your undergrad studies, you already know that you want to become a structural engineer, then you have the opportunity to widen your knowledge in structural engineering in a master's. And also master's always contains a research thesis. And once you start doing research, you really start developing your mind to a different level. So doing a master's gives you a lot of skills in terms of problem solving and experimental work, analytical work, drawing conclusions on a problem that you have defined, finding a solution for a problem, learning how to better communicate in terms of presenting and writing. So a master's has got many, many advantages. And personally, I would advise students to do a master's. Admission into master's programs is based on merit. So you would have to have a certain undergrad performance to be accepted into master studies. But if the question comes from someone who is about to start their undergrad studies in engineering, I think the question comes a bit too early. During your studies, you will learn what the benefits will be of doing a master's. But I think for everyone who has got the capabilities, a master's is a very good option.
Thanks a lot. There's a question that's been coming up a lot, and that has to do with admissions. And that's, does receiving this email verify a place as UCT? I can try and respond to that, and then if Hans wants to also respond, he can. So basically, the invitation to this was extended to all applicants and not only those who were made an offer. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you were made an offer, but as I mentioned earlier, you can track your application online by the link that is given in the UCT website. I don't know if Hans would like to respond further. That's okay.
Yeah, just a comment. I was under the impression that I'm only talking to those students who have been accepted. So for those who are not sure yet, I hold my thumbs for you so that you will be accepted.
Maybe this could be the final question because we are out of time. During this pandemic, how was the Department of Civil Engineering made it possible to study online? Is it even possible to study engineering online, especially as a first-year student? I mean, I can bear testament to that. We have done a lot of work as civil engineering during this pandemic to make sure we've done lots of online activities have been happening. I'll leave it to Hans to explain the details on how we made it happen.
Yeah, thank you. I think you're right. We have done a lot and we worked very hard to make it all happen. But that wasn't just civil engineering. The whole University of Cape Town as such has done a lot of work to make online education happening. And how we did it so it's the whole university and the whole faculty who've done, to my mind, an incredible job to try and make sure that education is still at the same level as where it should be, that we don't lose the educational value, that we assist all the students, even those who, what we would term, are vulnerable in terms of not living in study conducive environments. They've been supplied with laptops. We have tried in our department in particular to make sure we do asynchronous teaching, so we don't expect students to be online at a certain time, recognizing that some of them might not be in a position where they can just switch on their computer and attend a lecture. We tried to follow a low bandwidth philosophy where we translated lectures into written material, provided scripts, discussion forums. We've been continuously calling students on the phone to see how they are doing, to support them. So it was quite a major effort, which was all new to us. And luckily that is over now. Well, we're still doing online teaching, but in the first semester we did emergency remote teaching, which has now been converted to remote teaching without the emergency. And for next year we are planning a combined mode, which will be actually quite innovative. And to my mind, we can use this whole pandemic to our advantage. UCT has been wanting to go online for many years. And universities typically move quite slowly in terms of new developments. So UCT was talking about the Vision 2030, and by 2030 we should have shifted a part of our program online to facilitate a broader reach, use more innovative teaching methods and all of that. The pandemic has forced us to do just that now in 2020. So basically 2030 is coming in 2021, which I think is very exciting. So how we will do the teaching next year is as a mix of blended learning. So there will be online classes, online lectures, followed by seminars and tutorials where we do like hands-on practical work, where we do face-to-face discussions. We will use all these new technologies, which are not that new anymore, but like the Zoom and the Microsoft Teams and online facilities to do a blended learning facility, which, yeah, I think is very exciting. And if anything, it will drastically improve the quality of teaching. David, what do you think?
Totally agree. Totally agree. There's lots of plans and lots of new things that are going to happen within the department to take our courses and our programs to the next level. Definitely. Thank you so much. And we had 30 minutes and we're now over by a few minutes. So I think we'll cut it off there. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, thank you, David.
Thank you, Prof Beushausen.
You're welcome.